We wouldn't do it actually here on our source code. It wouldn't do anything. But since it knows what we're doing with that, we have to right click here to configure the attributes for our secure service. Okay. So here's where we specify that we're going to use a let me open this up just a little bit more so we can see the whole thing. There we go. So here's what we tell it what kind of security we're going to use. So in our case, we're going to use username authentication with symmetric keys. Now you can use mutual certificates. You can use any of these options actually that you want. But for this go around, I'm using the username authentication with symmetric key. There's documentation on what all of these actually mean, and so you can find those at the Metro site and print them out and go over them. But this is what we're going to use for our test for this time around. Our configuration is going to be username. We're going to take the defaults for this. The other thing we're going to do is look at our configuration here. Now we're going to basically use the defaults here, but once we get our web service set up, we're going to have to revisit this and add our web service as a service provider. And we'll see that when we actually get our web service done. Right now we just want to get the STS set up and deployed, and then we'll have to come back and of course and fix that and redeploy it. But for now we just want to make sure we can get an initial setup going. So we're going to add our key stores. So like I said, our key store from the previous video we did here, and we put them in software and we installed them in Apache key stores. So we're going to look at our key store here. Our password is change it. Now we can load our aliases, and the alias we want here I believe is the STS key, and we want the STS K, so we called it STSK pass. Alright, now we can verify that because if we look here in the next one, we have our username and we pick the MySTS key, and if we go back here, the STS keys, and look at the Tomcat, we'll see that that's the password we picked. So that's the password we used for the STS key, and the alias that we chose for it was, I think, MySTS. So there's the aliases. So that's where this information is coming from. Okay, so we can go back here. Okay, make sure, so it's MySTS key. We gave it the passphrase for that. Now the trust store, we want to just point it to our CA certs, but not here. We want to point it to the one that we have installed in our Apache installation. So we want this CA certs, and the pass is change it. We're not going to use an alias here. For our validators now, we're going to do a browse. We're going to go to our source packages. We're going to pick our plain text validator. Say OK. Advanced, we're just taking the defaults for that. Configuration here again, we're going to revisit this, and then we're going to add our web service as one of our providers. Okay, so I think we're all set here. Now, and this was lax, but I think on my Windows one I picked strict. For this, we're just going to take all the defaults, and we'll see what happens with that. Okay, so we're okay there. One other thing we have to do now is when we created this, NetBeans added our libraries, our Metro libraries for us, but one thing it didn't do is make them set it up so they get set up in our WAR file, and we need to check that so we can get a WAR so we can have these libraries all copied into our WAR file. If not, this won't work. Okay, so now if I've done everything correctly, we should be able to do a clean build here and have it generate a WAR file. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll go software, Apache, bin. We're going to start up Apache. tail the log. Okay, the server's up. So let's get another window here. Can go to where our log is. I like to just do this so I know where things are. Okay, now we can copy NetBeans, STS, dist war to software Apache web apps, and we should see it get deployed, and you can tell just by when it gets deployed if everything's going to work. Okay, it's kicking off. So far so good. Okay, now if you don't see these endpoints getting printed out when it's getting deployed, then something is wrong. And if something is wrong, it's usually going to be the web XML is wrong, the JAX-WS XML is wrong, in which case it's probably missing that extra endpoint. You don't have the listener in web XML. One of the other things that it can be is that you didn't specify the Metro libraries to be included in the WAR file. So it's usually one of those three things that will keep it from getting deployed. Okay, so now let's just double check here. So if we go to localhost 8080 STS, and it's STS provider, I think it is, provider service. Okay, we get this page. Now you'll see we have the metadata exchange service here. Now when you click that, this is correct because there's no WSDL for it really. Okay, but this one should work. Okay, so now you see we got our WSDL for our secure token server, and we'll see all the policy stuff in there that we expect to see there. Okay, so far this is looking pretty good. So we have our secure token server deployed. We're able to get a WSDL. If we go back here, we can see its endpoint addresses and its implementation classes. So this is looking pretty good. So our next video, what we're going to do is actually create the web service, and then we're going to secure the web service. We'll go back and add the provider to our STS. We'll deploy both of them, make sure both of them are working, and then the following video what we'll do is create our client that can talk to both of them. Okay, see y'all.